Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our guests, we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted today to be joined by Claire Delisle, SAP Systems Manager at Evergreen Garden Care, James Davies, Group IT Director at Evergreen Garden Care, and Graeme Hughes, Solution Director, UK and Ireland at NTT Data. So welcome to you all. And in today's episode, we're going to be discussing some top tips on making the move to S4HANA. I'm sure a topic that you'll all find quite useful in the current environment. And as we're talking top tips, it got me thinking about skills. So, a bit of a question before we move into the main topic. If you could learn any new skill or profession, what would it be and why? So, for me, I was kind of torn between learning languages quickly and easily and playing the piano and also learning to fly. I was toying those in my head just as I was asking that question. And I'm going to go with learning languages quickly and easily. I'm not great at languages. My daughter-in-law's from Peru as well, and I have lots of visits to Waldorf at SAP, and communication with other user groups around the world would really be helpful if I could speak a lot of different languages. So that's my skill. So, Graeme, what about you?
Oof, jeez, put me on the spot. Just listening to you talk, I thought, well, something creative maybe, because I don't think I've got that gene in my body. So I don't know, maybe a musician. None of my family have got a musical bone in them. So I think to learn an instrument and be the only person in the family to be able to do that well would be pretty impressive. But as to what instrument, I don't know. Maybe a drummer, because that sounds quite cool.
Oh, the cool guy's a drummer. Yeah. And James?
Well, you kind of covered a couple I was thinking of. I always wanted to be a pilot when I was growing up, and my eyes went bad, as you can see from my glasses. I couldn't do that, but I did go and see the new Maverick movie the other weekend, and that kind of rekindled my desire to be a pilot. But I have to say, I'm probably going to go with drums as well, because I do play guitar, but I'd really love to be able to play the drums.
Oh, lovely. And Claire?
I'm trying to master sailing at the moment. I've always been sort of a bit of a motor cruiser babe, where lots of my friends have had those. But I've put my hand to actually sailing. I'm finding it quite difficult, but I'm trying to master it. If not, I think I'd like to learn how to fly. I've always fancied flying an aeroplane, so it'd probably scare a lot of people, but I think I'd give it a go.
So potentially we could all go on a drumming tour, and I can chat to people wherever we land, and James and Graeme can play away, and you can sail us to distant shores. Sounds like a plan. Well, thank you very much for that. And just moving now on to our main topic, and just taking a look at kind of recent user group research we've done, which highlighted that a third of organisations felt the amount of change management required on the move to S4HANA was more than they actually expected. And, I'd just like to ask a question, really. Does that figure surprise any of you based on your experience? If I could start with you, Graeme, on that.
Does it surprise me? Yes and no. Surprises me, it's not more, I think, from the conversations we have with customers on a great basis. Yes, in terms of it's a considerable percentage. When we have lots of conversations about, transformation journeys, road mapping, looking at solution strategies, we always position transformational readiness and change adoption. And it's one of the lowest to be kind of focused on going forward. So it doesn't surprise me, only in the fact that it would be higher, because we find challenges in those clients who don't kind of look towards change adoption and impressing that right across the whole life cycle of the project.
Thanks. And what have you seen on your journey at Evergreen, James or Claire?
Well, I wasn't actually here. I might sometimes think, fortunately, when they did the SAP implementations, but Claire was. So Claire's definitely more qualified to talk about that change management journey at Evergreen.
I think that the changes at Evergreen were very large. What we had to go into and what we were looking and what we were measuring against. I don't think anybody sort of foresaw what was actually going to happen at the time. And it's like I was discussing with James earlier, although you feel like you're going from an old system to an upgrade, you're just going from an old system to a brand new system. That's nothing really like the old one.
Yeah, and you talked a lot, Claire, about sorry to interrupt you. A lot earlier on about the apps and moving from apps and selecting the right app, because there's multiple apps to do the same thing in a different way.
Yes, because so everybody uses SAP is used to ECC with the T codes, all that kind of thing, and then you're going to an application base, with all of the different tiles. It's like going to a new world, really. And although people just want to still use their old T codes, because of course it's a lot quicker. You think it is until you've actually got the applications, and then of course you create your own menu, your own places, and everything links in, and it just turns out an awful lot quicker and beneficial in the long run.
Okay, thank you. And just looking at that journey, Claire, if we can go back to kind of the start of that S4 project, and which stakeholders do you feel should be involved at the outset? What was really interested in your experiences within Evergreen?
Okay, so I joined after the blueprinting area. There was already a sort of a BPO there, but I sort of took over. It seemed to be a lot of senior management that was very involved, the directors, rather than the actual business people that are doing the jobs every day. So for me, I would like to have engaged the main part of the business far sooner in mapping the direction and the journey of where we were going to go. All stakeholders were included, but I don't think the team was really, really engaged.
Okay. And Graeme, your experiences from working with customers?
Yeah, I've been on both sides of the fence. I think what Claire says resonates with me. I was started out in my SAP journey as an end user for a good 9 years or so, and it's probably a bad example of not getting executive stakeholders engaged early on, getting that support, so that when you're looking for the best people to be on those projects, you've got their support to release those individuals. And then going forward to working with lots of customers on the same type of journeys Evergreen went through. We try and encourage that top down and bottom up engagement, and you're looking for teams with process owners or global process owners. You're looking for that ownership amongst the business. You're looking for good business engagement and the right structure and alignment with the methodology that you're using to bring all that together. And you often see good and bad examples, and despite how much you encourage some of the tips and trips, they're not always adopted. So it's definitely always a challenge.
And when customers are looking at the journey to S4, invariably they'll be working with a partner and looking at the support from that partner and the skills, if you like, really housed within the partner to help customers on the journey. What skills and capabilities should a customer be looking for in a partner on the journey to S4? And you may be biased, Graeme, but please, if we're talking in general terms, if I can start with you on this one.
Yeah, I think the obvious one, solution expertise in the area that you're looking to engage, strength and depth. So it's not just a veneer of polished people that you're getting to speak to, but an army of people behind, with the right expertise, the right resources in the right regions for your company. I think is important. now everything's, global. You need, good strength and depth in the regions with the local, regulation expertise as well. Industry expertise is important. So, things have got to resonate and be relevant to the industry or the customer that you're working with. So, it's a recent change we've made is to become more industry focused in specific industries where we believe we've got the strength. And then, look them in the eye and look for that trusted relationship with your partner. I used to work for a boss from Yorkshire, and it was all about, meet and greet, firm handshake, look them in the eyes and get that confidence that these are good people to work with. So definitely always advocate that.
Yeah, thanks. And James, Claire, from your perspective in working on projects, the skills that you're looking for and you need?
Well, I think the value that a partner brings to an implementation of any piece of software or any business change is generally obviously the skills of the people that are involved, or the experience that Graeme mentioned. But the difference between having a bunch of individuals who have got some experience and an organisation is the ability to turn around and face into that organisation by the consultants and say, well, we've done this before. Maybe I haven't, but the organisation has. Where can I find that collective knowledge to go and answer a problem for us and bring that industry experience, that process experience, and help us drive change in our business. And I've found that, to be honest, I'm not commenting on NTT here because I wasn't here for the implementation, but in other partners in the past doing ERP, doing e-commerce platforms, that is somewhere where they generally lack. And for me, that's where the relationship can then fall down because they're not adding value as an organisation at that point. But yeah, it's super important, I think.
Thanks. Anything to add, Claire?
Just the skill of the workforce that the partners have actually, that they are, the experts in the field.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I guess so. Just to add to that, I think there's the ongoing relationship as well. So the implementation relationship is one thing, and then the ongoing relationship. And there's no one size fits all answer. I think it depends on what you want to have internal in your team, or in your business, or what you want to have external. And there's things for us that we don't want to spend time worrying about and thinking about and hosting the platform, feeding and watering it. That's not something we're interested in. But we have made a choice to invest heavily in functional experts, and Claire's done a fantastic job recently of hiring a new team, which will start soon, because we think that's really value add for our team in our business.
Fantastic. I'd just like to maybe stay on that relationship point a little bit, because I think it's an extremely important part of business, and that's the relationships between people within organisations and how that can strengthen the relationship between the organisations. They're often said that, you do business with people, but you do business with people that you like. And, that power of relationships, I don't know whether you agree or disagree, but, as a customer, you're more than a number. You've got a personal relationship with the people in the organisation. How does that strengthen things for you?
It certainly does for me, actually. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yes, you want to feel that that they're really on your side, and it's not just a contract. That it is a relationship. There's a certain amount of warmth and a lot of trust between the organisations.
I was just going to say that is really important, especially after COVID times. I think the best projects I've worked on, there's been a really good project team. Ethics, relationship, fun, being able to socialise with your team and bring the customer and the partner together. We've all missed three or so years of being on projects or being in those relationships where we can go for a meal or a drink or a team event, a team day out, to really boost morale on a project, and it really brings that relationship strength together, really. So definitely I think that's something we're all looking forward to getting back to.
Thanks. And James, you were going to say something?
Just to echo really what they're saying, and I think what those relationships do is bring a trust, and trust brings speed. So you don't spend a lot of time. You don't spend a lot of time pouring through contracts and looking for who's done what and trying to point the finger. If you just trust each other, you just get on with it, and that brings a real speed to projects and on an ongoing basis where we've got issues. And Claire knows better than me, but if we've got areas of our business and our functionality with SAP that we don't know as well as we'd like, then if we've got people we can trust to throw it over the wall to, then you can just throw it over the wall. You know it's going to get done, and you can move on and do other things as well. So yeah, super important as well.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you for that. Again, always back to the people, the most important part of all of this. You can have all the technology in the world, but you need the right people and working with the right people.
Hi, we're the UK and Ireland SAP user group. Did you know we're a fiercely independent not-for-profit? Did you know we're a vibrant community of over 6,500 SAP users? And did you know we help each other by sharing resources, championing education, and influencing SAP's future development? Well, you do now. If you'd like to get the most from your SAP investments and be in the know, visit our website, sapusers.org/pod. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
And just going back to something that you mentioned earlier, Claire, about obviously the huge change challenges that came, and what are were there any other challenges that you encountered in your journey at Evergreen?
I was actually the functional FICO person at the time. So even for me, coming in from sort of ECC into S4 it was a huge climb, to be honest. I think I mentioned talking to James the other day when we actually saw the chart of accounts that came in. It was a very scary moment for me. So where I used to build charts of accounts before and map all the new accounts coming through and revenue, etc. Whereas I used to go in there and it used to take me sort of 2 or 3 months. I was actually just on the automated accounts itself was there for sort of almost 3 months, getting the configuration right and the clearing accounts. And I mean, the system itself is a heck of a lot more complicated because, of course, it's also getting ready for premise to the cloud. So it's the ultimate at the end of the day. But the great things we've seen come from it since was well worth the effort. But I think planning time should have been longer in my mind for me. So planning, I would say, was a bit of a downside, something that we really could have improved on.
So lots of work at the beginning to make sure the right information is going to the right place, and then you reap the rewards later on.
Yes, yeah, it was.
Okay, and Graeme, what do you see are the typical challenges organisations face when moving to S4?
I think it's similar lines to what Claire said on the planning and what you can do to assess how you're going to move forward. It's about the path that you take, the right choice in path in terms of platform and infrastructure and solution. We're all aware of RISE with SAP and the options that brings. You're just really doing your due diligence and analysing that. What does your timeline look like? What other business implications are there in terms of different regions with different spikes in business of when they can go live, when they can't go live, looking at customer code, doing all the analysis from all the accelerators you can get from SAP or from your partner to analyze all that kind of customization, and then looking at that transformational readiness, going back to that and making sure the business is ready and the change adoption is in the best place it can possibly be with the right stakeholders engaged. There's a lot of complexity on the surface, but there's a lot of partners and expertise internally as well who can help you with that journey and avoid those bumps in the road.
Mm-hmm. Claire?
I'd just like to say as well, I think one of the most important things at this point when you're first at the beginning is the gap analysis is huge. So if you look at what you've got today and look at what you know you're going to, and you manage to close off all those gaps in between, you'll have a better way of planning your journey.
And another, challenge for organisation tends to be skills and training, and within the organisation itself around the solutions. And James, how have Evergreen approached upskilling, training? And you already mentioned, obviously, Claire's got a great new team coming in.
Well, it's a really good question, this, and it's one thing that comes up regularly when I talk to the regional managing directors of the different businesses we've got all over the world. And the common bit of feedback I get is, we're not making the most out of S4. How can we get the most out of it? We need to train our staff. And it's actually quite a difficult challenge for us to face into. So I think a bit of context of our organisation might help here, maybe not. But we've got this kind of democratic organisation where we've got a group function and we've got various regions where they're sort of autonomous and they kind of do what they want with it within reason. And that was a lot of wrangling on the project and the implementation. I know that we should have taken the view of, we'll change the process, not the system. But there's a lot of moving parts at the time, and it was a lot of pressure to get things done. So the businesses were allowed slightly to go off and do their own thing, which worked really well from a commercial point of view. But now we're kind of coming back and looking at which parts of the business can we knit back together in a sensible way. And this is related to the training and knowledge, and that comes back to process. So it's really hard for a central team at the moment to go and say, right, this is how you do order entry within Evergreen, because it's probably done in 4 or 5 slightly different ways in parts of our business. So we're now going to have a focus as an organisation on cooperating together and coming to a single set of processes where we think it makes sense to do so. And then when we have that, we'll have documentation. We can start to do screen recordings. We can start to do testing, documentation, and we can then really start to be harmonized across all the teams on how they do things. So that knowledge persistence is going to be much easier within the organization, and it has lots of other benefits. We're trying to move into agile ways of delivery and continuous improvement, etc. But the real focus for us now is, and Graeme would spend some time helping us trying to figure this out, is how do we map our existing processes, which we can then roll out across our regions.
Thanks. And Claire, on the journey to S4, did you feel, or were you leaning on kind of your partner, SAP, as well as your own team in that process?
In the training process, the company sort of got some external trainers in, which I got to be honest, I don't think they were that very good. So we, at the end of the day, NTT sort of gave us knowledge into our team. So we had KT from them, to which at the end of the day, to get everything going and out on time, we all the functional people had to jump in and do training at the end of the day, just to get the project to where it needed to be. Because S4 was quite new then, there was only one previous version before ours, I believe. There just wasn't a lot of documentation out there. Nobody really knew how everything properly fitted together. So we did struggle at that point in time. We got it off the ground at the end of the day, but again, I'll probably agree with James. I don't think people had the best training because we were all new to it as well.
And Graeme, just following on from that, what's your advice to customers going on this journey to ensure they've got the right skills and training in-house to support them?
Well, really look at that transformational readiness pillar of assessing your S4 journey. It's about training and that knowledge transfer Claire talks about. It's about what other accelerators you can bring in to make that journey more streamlined. So test automation, data migration assistance, utilizing tools on the training side where you can, if it makes sense to you. Look at these tools that SAP have got, like Enable Now, the Learning Hub subscriptions. Assess whether they're a good fit for your business and could be adopted, and really look for those softer things around that transformational readiness to smooth that journey as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. And how should partners support customers on that, whether it be partner or whether they're working direct with SAP? How can partners help?
I think in the first instance, awareness of what's there to be used. I think a lot of customers go into this a little bit overawed by the scale of the task in hand and the complexity, and they have a lot of questions. So that assessment phase is really important, I think, and then it's about what that awareness a partner and SAP can bring in looking at all of the tools and the methodologies available to help. Really just plotting out the course, and you're doing those change impact assessments early on in the project to really, come up with the answers, socialize that across the business through whatever channels you can, really, whether it's through those stakeholder engagements, surveys, constant communications, and making sure you've got a path for success and all of the tools and accelerators to help you.
Thank you. So now kind of switching through, being on the journey, we've now got S4. How do you ensure that, you're maximising your investment in, what the organisation's put into S4 in probably blood, sweat and tears, and also the financial resource as well. And James, you were talking earlier about, mapping processes and so on and so forth. So how are you looking at ensuring that Evergreen get the most out of S4?
Yeah, a really good question. And like I said, it's something that we're permanently being challenged on. I think firstly, I always challenge the idea back to the business of, we're not getting the 100% out of S4. Well, you never will do, because all software can do way more than you'll ever need it to do. It's about making sure you're getting the value of the right items for you. I know when I talked with Claire about this, she quite rightly pointed out that we need to do a better job of keeping up to date with notes and patching more regularly, and we are facing into a large upgrade that we're going to do hopefully next year. But again, it comes down to process. It comes back to making sure that we're not trying to do things in 15 different ways in the same system, that we have business process owners who mandate changes and collaborate. And I'd be interested to get Graeme's view on this, because I think whenever we talk about getting the most out of the system and training, there's always a reliance on IT to say, well, IT should be helping us, and then the partner should somehow miraculously drop this knowledge into the business. But there's a responsibility on organisations taking on change like this, that this is a massive effort. Don't underestimate the change management. For example, we don't have enough super users in the business who can answer questions on process. So the next phase for us after business process owners coming in is making sure we've got proper subject matter experts or super users, whatever we want to call them, and it's part of their job to maintain that knowledge and be the local shoulder tap person to say, how do I do this? So I think there's a responsibility as an organisation. We need to not be looking at our IT function or our external partners, but across the organisation. This is really key for us being good at serving our customer, being good at planning, being good at whatever it is, to take on the ownership and responsibility of our process and our ways of working.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Claire, anything to add?
No, I totally agree with that. Being a consultant myself in the past, I expect the business to come to me and say, this is what I want. And then I'll look at it, I'll spec it, and I'll build it. But they expect us at the moment a bit to say, well, this is what you want. And then they sort of scratch their heads. And it would be really great if it was turned the other way around and the business comes to us with ideas rather than, IT always coming up with the ideas.
Yeah, and I just feel I should play devil's advocate and be a bit fair on our business, because it is very easy for us to kind of other them and sit here and go IT in the business. But of course, that's not true. That's not where we want to be. We want to be one team. And I think where we are as an organisation, the background to it really makes a difference here, and that the Evergreen Garden Care was carved out from a large US corporate. And what that meant was we had to stand up IT from scratch, bits of supply chain, lots of expertise that was centrally controlled in the US. So all of that was happening all at the same time as putting in SAP. And what's really good about our organisation is the leadership pick focus areas year on year and look to improve them. So what I try and get the team to think about is if we do hit an area that's bad, like if I'm being honest, planning in our company is not great. That's just because we haven't got to it yet, but we're getting to it now. So we kind of going to face into it this year, and we'll make it better. But there'll still be another 5, 6 of those that we'll have to face into, and they're going to annoy us until they're sorted out. But we will get there.
Thank you. And Graeme, any advice from you?
Yeah, I've been just listening to what Claire and James were saying there. I think I boil it down to 3 key things. I think the first one is the engagement model that you have with your partners. And, what we found useful at NDBS is we get that engagement model right. We put this methodology in place, and we put the cadence in place to continue those conversations, and we've got the right expertise in the room with the customer. So what that means is if we've got projects ongoing, we've got project delivery people in that process. If we've got aftercare support, we've got the support managers in place. And then my role as a solution director is to bring all that together and put that cadence in place and look to shape the transformation going forward, especially for people like Claire and James at Evergreen, where they've done a lot of investments in their SAP estate, and now they're looking to get a lot of value out of it. So it's getting that model right. If you get that model right, then you're having the right conversations, and we've got a lot of intel about what's important to Evergreen as a business, and we can feed that back in. So when James talks about those magic answers from a partner of what you need to adopt, that's going to be made an awful lot easier by the more we know about them and the more regular conversations we have. We can give them that enablement, we can give them that awareness, that knowledge transfer of the way ahead. So that's important to me, the right engagement model. The second thing is continuous improvement. So we've talked a lot about the S4 journey, and Evergreen are quite mature along that S4 journey. They've gone live. They've implemented a lot of capabilities within S4, like advanced available to promise, IBP, adopted a lot of Fury amongst the business, but they are really, really keen, and hats off to them, to continuously improve and look towards that next step in terms of the roadmap. So already looking and talking about their upgrade to the next most suitable version of S4 to themselves. And we're looking towards that transform phase to look at how you can, make sure you've got the right capabilities mapped to those problem areas that they feel they've got, whether it's based on process or data or technology. And the third and final one, and James touched upon this area, is value realization. Everything that you implement or spend investment in, we've got to have value, and it's how we realize that value, how we identify the value up front. Hence why James and Claire are going through a kind of process discovery and documentation exercise to identify those areas and try and leverage whatever intel they can get from the system in terms of KPIs or process performance indicators to really understand how they can make those problem areas and challenges turn into really well performing processes going forward. So if we can get that conversation going through the engagement model, we can get that continuous improvement going, and we can realize that value. I think along that journey, the business are going to come along all the time.
Oh, thank you very much for that. And finally, just what I'd just like you to leave our listeners, if you may, is just one final piece of advice you'd give to someone moving to S4. And if I can start with you, Claire.
Okay. I think the main thing is just getting all the information, making sure all the team is in place, that you've got business buy-in, and you all set off your journey to sort of reach the same goals, and listen to the business. Really listen to the business. Don't just think, well, this is going to make your life easier. They have ideas, that are way above what we think. We're technical people, right? We try to put everything in for them that works, but from the heart of it, they really know what they want, and they're also the people that know how the business can be improved. So for me, it's getting all that up front for me, business progresses, alignments, all business units, and then we can go and get our job done.
Thank you. James?
And going straight off the back of what Claire's already done there by setting everything up front, it's I've not with SAP, but experience in other businesses where trying to do something like an ERP implementation or an upgrade or a change to a new version, is you've got to have people from the business who know what they're doing, dedicated to the project. You can't do this part-time. I mean, I'm sure loads of people are listening to this are going to go, well, of course, but I've seen it not done, and I've had to deal with projects not done that way, and I can't emphasize that enough.
Thank you. And final words from you, Graeme.
Well, I'm of course going to say get the right partner like NTT to help you on that journey, but I won't. So, and I agree with Claire. I would have picked the business engagement, but to pick a different one, I'd say do your due diligence and do that assessment well. You know, pick a good partner to work with and utilize your internal expertise and your business people and do that assessment and really, you know, get to plot out your roadmap from the outset.
No. Thank you. Thank you all very, very much. Claire, James, Graeme, thank you very much for your time today and your insights into that journey. I've found it very valuable, and hopefully our listeners have too. I hope you've enjoyed listening today and you found that conversation valuable. So please make sure you hit that plus button and subscribe so every episode drops into your podcast app. And until the next time, stay safe, stay well, and keep washing your hands.